welcome to my Aura Style. My name is Tammie and I use fashion, lifestyle, and travel content to show you what it's like to live black plus in a bride. But as you know, we're turning over a new leaf on the channel and I am embarking upon story times. So the first two stories that I posted on this channel was about my experience at Carnival and how I got scammed. Please watch part one and part two, as well as the vlog, to get a little bit of context about that story time. Today we're going to talk about another topic, but it's kind of the same concept. And so you saw the title of this story time. This is how I almost got scammed into marrying this man that I was dating. Go to London. So let's just jump right in. And so this was back when I got my bachelor's degree. I had did the commencement ceremony and I celebrated with my family. And of course, as anybody who just graduated, I wanted to go out and turn up. So I always had this friend that would go out with me. And so we decided to go out on the town and, just turn up and have fun. So we picked a spot. I graduated in a college near the Dallas Metroplex, and so there is this spot called Deep Ellum. Back when I was going out, that's where all the clubs and the bars was, and it was just on this long strip. And so we ended up parking my car. Another friend came and got us and actually dropped us off on the strip where all the clubs and the bars was. And so we walking up and down the strip. We did a vibe check to see what the music was like. Mind you, it was a little bit earlier in the evening, and we decided to go to this one bar. Now, it wasn't a lot of people in there because it was relatively early, but the music was bumping. And so eventually I found my way to the dance floor. I was dancing, my friend was hitting a little two-step, and there was this other group of girls who came to join us. And so I think somebody in their group had graduated as well. My friend was talking to them. I was just kind of in my own little world dancing. And I heard her say, yeah, my friend graduated too. Next thing you know, I'm up on the stage and it's a group of us dancing. And so, of course, it's hot in the summer in Dallas, Texas. It's hot in the summer in Texas, period. And so I started to sweat. Well, at that particular time, my hair was longer and I had a sew-in to wear up underneath my cap and gown. I didn't get a full sew-in. I had a leave out in the front. And so, of course, my hair has not always been long, but it has been thick. And if you have thick hair, you know any perspiration, any moisture that get on your hair, eventually your hair gonna frizz up. And I wasn't having that. I had spent a lot of money to get my hair done. I wanted my style to last like any other black woman knows. And so I was just like, I'm not doing this. Like, we need to go outside to get some fresh air. And so me and my friend went outside to get some fresh air, and it wasn't that much cooler outside than it was in the club, but it was a lot less people. And so I was fanning myself, trying to get some air circulated, trying to, not have my hair frizz up. And we felt this rush of cool air. Again, it was a warm summer night, so where is this air coming from? And so I just ignored it. Maybe it was a fluke, I don't know. And I kept fanning myself, and I felt it again, and I looked at my friend, and she felt it. And so I'm looking at her, she looking at me, I'm like, where is this air coming from? And so we just began to really tune into our environment And a couple of doors down, we saw this doorman opening and closing the door to let people in the club. And every time he opened the door, y'all, there was this burst of cold air. I looked at my friend, she looked at me, and I was like, that's where we need to go. And so we go a couple of doors down. There was no cover for the club. And, it wasn't a lot of people in there, but it was kind of dark. You know how clubs are. And the music was bumping. And so, me and my friend are peeping the vibes, and I feel somebody grab my wrist. Now, not to the point where they was handcuffing me. It wasn't very aggressive, but it definitely got my attention. So I spun around, and there was this man standing there. And I remember thinking, oh, he's kind of cute. Maybe he was the one that was trying to get my attention. I did a mental check, and my intuition was like, well, go over there and talk to him. What would it hurt? And so I walked over and talked to him, and during our exchange, I could tell that he had a heavy accent. And so I asked, are you from Africa? And he said yes. We exchanged a little bit more. At that time, my friend was standing off to the side where she was close enough to get to me if something went down, but she was kind of far away, just kind of letting me do my thing, right? And so we ended up going to the bar. He ended up walking me over to the bar to buy me a drink. And so it was him leading, and then it was me a little bit behind him, and my friend a little bit behind me. So all three of us get to the bar. Mind you, a little bit more people had begun to come in. It was a little bit more crowded, and it was kind of a crowd around the bar. And so the bartender finally comes over to him. Now, mind you, I'm the type of person that's a social drinker, okay? I don't really drink that much. And so even to this day, when I go out, I go for the vibes, I go to look cute, and I go to dance. And so that has not changed much since then. And so when we got to the bar, I'm kind of scanning because I didn't have a signature drink back then. And I saw that they had Smirnoff Ice behind the bar. And so I just ordered one of those because I had tasted one of those before. And so he orders my drink, and then he bends down to me. He was like, is that your friend? And I was like, yeah. And he looked at the bartender and held up two fingers. Now, y'all, I know that men are supposed to be a certain way. Like, when you're trying to talk to a young lady and she's with a group of friends, proper decorum is that if you buy her a drink, you're supposed to buy a round of drinks. And what most men, in my experience, do is if they're trying to talk to one person in a group, there's two things that they're going to do. Number one, they're not going to approach, or they're going to wait till that young lady is by herself, or number two, they're going to opt out of buying the drink but converse with the rest of the friends. The fact that he bought my friend a drink stood out to me because it happened so infrequently when I went out. Normally what I was used to is if a man wanted to talk to a woman, him, doing what I just said, or just buying that woman a drink, But the fact that he bought my friend a drink, I thought that was very respectful. So I was like, I kind of want to get to know this guy. So by the time we got our drinks, there was a significant amount of people in the club. And so we no longer could hear each other. The club had this outside part that was a part of the club. So we took our drinks out there. When we got out there, he introduced us to his friend, and his friend tried to talk to my friend. And so we were standing, kind of in the corner talking, and I got a good look at him, and I was like, okay, he's kind of handsome. And so how we do, He asked me what my name was, what my size, who I be with, what numbers to dial, all of that. You know what I'm saying? And so, another thing about me, I had this rule that I didn't take my cell phone in the club. I typically went to the club with that one friend. She always had her phone with her, so I didn't have to worry about taking my phone in the club. There was just not anybody that I wanted to meet in a club. I only met like one person that I dated in the club, and even then, I didn't have my phone, so he had to get my number. And so that's just again to look cute for the vibes and to dance. That's what I was there for, and to hang out with my friends. And so he asked me for my number, and he hit me with the, well, "What you doing after this? I don't live far." I said, "Going home and going to sleep." And he didn't even bat an eyelash. Like, I think maybe he tried it to see what I was on, but once he saw that I wasn't on that type of time, the conversation moved to another direction. And so by that time, my friend was kind of over it. She walks over to us and the guy, and she's like, the friend who dropped us off over there is like, he about to be on his way to come take you to your car so we can go. I was ready to go, and so we said our goodbyes. And one of the things that the guy told me is, "I actually saw you before you walked in, and I was hoping that you would come down here." And I was like, okay, he's running game, whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right. And he was like, "No, I'm serious." He was like, "I saw you when you was over there at that other spot fanning yourself." And I was like, "Oh, like that." And so, at any rate, my friend came to pick us up, dropped me back off to my car. I drove home, and by the time I got home, I had a text message. I was like, okay, cute, Didn't really think too much more of it. So now that I was a college graduate, I had this routine where I would go to work and then I would come home and I would work out. I was a big proponent of working out at home. A lot of my fitness journey was like that. I've worked out on and off all of my adult life, and I had this big library back then of workout tapes. I had weights, I think I even had a stepper at the house. Like, I was working out at the house. And so in the middle of one of my workouts, he called and I answered the phone, and he asked me what I was doing. I was like, I'm in the middle of a workout, but can I call you back? And that's when he told me he was at work. He told me he worked tonight, and he told me that his break was only an hour. And I was like, when did you start your break? He told me what time. I was like, well, I'll call you back in about 30 minutes. And if you can pick up, that's fine. If not, maybe we can find another time to talk. He was cool with that. And so that initial conversation, y'all, was cute. We was just getting to know each other, right? And so he had a habit of calling me every day during the same time. And so we began to converse while he was on his break at work. And just by the way the conversations was going, I could tell that he was going to ask me out. Like, I feel like he was feeling me, I was feeling him, and so it was just inevitable at that point. And so he decided to ask me out. And that Saturday, I was actually doing something with my family. My mom threw me a graduation get together at my parents' house. And so I was going to be doing that all day Saturday. And that's what I told him. I was like, but Sunday I'm free. And he was like, okay, well, on Sunday, let's find something to do together. I was like, okay. And so that was that. So I go to my parents' house. We had the graduation get together. It was really nice. I had seen a lot of people that I hadn't seen in months and Sundays. On Sunday, we went to church together as a family. And Sunday afternoon when I got home, he called. And so we talked for a little bit, but not a lot. He was like, he was going to take a nap and he was going to call me back. Well, while I was waiting, I decided to do some laundry. I had a stackable washer and dryer in my little apartment, but my parents had the full size washer and dryer. So, of course, I'm going to use they washer and dryer so I can get all my laundry done and out of the way. So I got all my laundry done, folded. I'm getting ready to go. And I said to myself, watch, as soon as I get ready to walk out the door, he gonna call. And he called. And so I pick up the phone and he was like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm getting ready to head home from my parents' house. And he was like, I want to see you though. And I was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? What did you have in mind? And he was like, well, I'm new to the city. I just moved here a few months ago. I'm not sure what there is to do. And I was like, well, maybe we can go to Dave & Buster's. And he was like, okay, so he's looking up the locations. There's one location near his house, and there's one location near my house. And so I was like, well, let's go to the one near your house. He lived in a nice part of town. And so I was like, let's go to the one near your house. I had never been to that one. And I'm the type of person, I love to do stuff that I've never been. That I love to go to places that I've never been before. And so he was like, we could go to that one or we could go to the one near your house because it's getting late and I don't want you to drive too far. Baby, I softened up. I was like, okay. And so we made the date. We met up there. And y'all, it was a cute little vibe. First of all, it was an older Dave & Buster's, and it was on a Sunday, so it wasn't a lot of people in there. And anyway, I was so like immersed in the date that wouldn't have noticed anybody anyway. Like, the conversation flowed freely. We played some games. We got to know each other. So when it came time for us to have dinner, he was looking at the menu and he was like, I don't know what none of this food is. Like, he was like, I'm used to African food. I'm not used to American food. And so I asked him, okay, well, what do you like? And he told me some foods that he liked. And I was like, well, they have this taco plate. Maybe you can get that. It came with like 3 tacos, some rice and beans. I forgot what I ordered. But what I remember is he didn't know nothing about nothing. He didn't know how to, dress the taco or anything like that. And so I remember helping him to like dress the taco and low-key almost feeding it to him. And I think that he liked it. Even if he didn't like the food, he liked the fact that, I was showing such care and concern for him enjoying his meal. And so once I got him squared away, I ate my meal. And we just kept talking and getting to know each other. The waitress came over. He paid the bill, no problem. And, because this day and age, child, that could be an issue in and of itself. But he paid the bill, no problem. We got up and we left. And so as we were walking to the parking lot, he was walking me to my car. And he saw that I had a new car. I hadn't always had that car. I think I had had the car for about 2 months when we dated. I was driving an older car, a used car, and it just went on to glory. It just died on me. So I had to get a new car, and it wasn't a very expensive car. It was a Hyundai Accent. It was black. It was what I could afford. And so he was looking at my car, and he seemed very impressed, even for my car to be like a little inexpensive car. And the reason why I got a new car back then is because I was thinking, I didn't have a lot of wiggle room in my budget for like maintenance expenses for a car. So I felt like if I got a new car within my monthly budget, that, besides routine maintenance, I wouldn't have to do maintenance on the car for at least like 3 to 5 years. And that was something that I needed. And so he got in the car. He saw my car and he was impressed. He was like, "Wow, this is a nice car." Mind you, I only had it for about 2 months, so the exterior was still shiny and glistening. It still had that new car smell. Like it was a nice vehicle. And so he got in on the passenger side and he was looking around. He was like, "This is nice." And then he looked at the dashboard. He saw I didn't have a radio. The reason why I didn't have a radio is, again, because I was on a budget. And my budget didn't allow for the cars with the radio. So the dealership that sold me the car told me that the baseline models of the car did not have radios. And if I wanted to keep my car note payments within a certain price point, I should get the baseline model with no radio. I was like, cool. I was like, I can just give me a little aftermarket radio down the line, probably when I get my income taxes. And so he was looking, he was like, "Oh, you don't have a radio." And he said it more out of concern and less out of judgment. And so I was like, "No, I don't have a radio. I'm going to get it eventually." I think I was listening to music on my phone back then. I don't know how I was listening to music, but it was what it was. A small inconvenience, for trying to pay a big car note. And so we ended up doing a couple of exchanges, just wrapping up the day, saying our goodbyes. And he turns to me and he asks me, "Do you know where the nearest gas station is?" I was like, "Yeah." And I started giving him directions and he was like, "Well, can I just follow you there?" And I was like, "It's right up the street. Like, you actually passed by it before you got to the restaurant." And he was like, "I know, but I would just rather follow you." And I was like, all right. He didn't give me crazy vibes. You know what I'm saying? My intuition was telling me that I wouldn't have been in any danger. And so I allowed him to follow me to the gas station. So I pull up to the front, to the pump first. He pulled up to the pump. I rolled my window down. I was like, all right, I'm getting ready to pull off. And he was like, "Wait," and so he came to my window and he was like, "So how much is it to fill your gas tank?" I was like, "What?" And he was like, "How much is it to fill your gas tank?" And I was like, "Why?" Because, I thought maybe he was asking more questions about my car, because I could tell that he was in the cars. He was like, "Because I want to get your gas." And I was like, "Oh." Softened up again. And so I told him how much it was. And then, y'all, when he came back, he proceeded to do the sexiest thing I had ever experienced in my life. Baby, he opened up the door that opened to the gas. I can't even articulate my words, but you know what I'm talking about. The little door before you get to the gas cap. He opened that up. He turned that gas cap. He put that nozzle in there and began to pump the gas. And I was just watching him through the window. And he saw me watching and he looked at me and he smiled. He's like, "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for Ebony." My car was a little black car, so I called her Ebony. And I started smiling. I just chuckled. And so he finished pumping the gas and, fixed my car back. And I was like, "All right, you got to drive off now." And he was like, "Huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, you got to drive off because I'm not driving off and you can follow me home. That's not what we doing." And he kind of gave me a look and cocked his head to the side, but he got in his car and he drove off. And so once he got in his car and he drove off, I waited like for 2 to 3 minutes and then I drove home. And I just thought about the date the whole way. I was like, oh my goodness, that was like a really good date, And I hope that I get to see him again. And so after that, we entered this little pattern where he would call me every day, if not every other day, on his lunch break at work, and we would just talk, you know. And then that came to sometimes he would call me when he was at home, and we would talk. And so then we had our second date. Now the second date also was on a Sunday, and so I had this routine where, look, on Sundays, that's my last little hurrah before I have to start the work week. And so, you know, he let me pick the place again. I picked a Mexican restaurant that wasn't too far from where I lived. And so we met up at the Mexican restaurant, you know, because safety is first. I had been talking to this man at this point for like maybe 2 weeks. And so I still didn't know him. I didn't feel comfortable with him picking me up. And so we met at the restaurant. We ate outside. It was a warm night again, but it wasn't too hot. Out on the patio, it was just him and me and like one other couple. And then that couple left, and then it was just me and him. And we sat and we ate and we talked. And this time it was a little bit touchy-feely, but not in a very, you know, not in that way. We were flirting. And so I took his hat off of his head because I wanted to see his hair. And he let me, he held his hands out on the table, and I put my hands in his hands. It was giving really cutesy. And so at the end of the day, he walked me to my car, and he was like, okay, well, where's the gas station around here? And at that time, I already knew what was up. I was about 85% sure that he wanted to put gas in my car. And, you know, I was right. And as he was pumping the gas, I was like, I can get used to this. You know what I'm saying? So I had dated before, but a lot of the guys that I dated before was around my age. This man was a little bit older. He was about maybe 3 to 5 years older than I was, but he was in his 30s. And his swagger was just a little bit different, y'all. Like, he was mild-mannered. He was quiet, but he was confident. And he just carried himself like a grown man. Like, he knew how to treat a woman. Sometimes, you know, when men are young and they're trying to figure things out, they're trying to figure out their style of dating as well. And sometimes the woman that they're interested in has to kind of teach them how they want to be treated. This man already came knowing that he should initiate dates, that he should pay for dates, that he don't leave me empty-handed as somebody that he's interested in. You know what I'm saying? And I just like the value systems. I like the way that I was being treated. And so I was like, I can get used to this. And so I told him, hey, you know my rule, you gotta drive off first. And again, he didn't protest. He was respectful. He did as I asked. He drove off first. The third date, he wanted me to come over to his house. Now, mind you, he didn't live alone. He was new to the city. He was living with family. He was living with his sister-in-law, and she had a young son, about a toddler age. And so I was like, I had to have a talk with myself, because the attraction was mutual, the energy was mutual. I was like, okay, look, girl, we're not doing nothing when we go over there, because I really wanted to take things slow, and I really wanted us to get to know each other. Like, I liked what I already was experiencing, and I wanted to know more, and I didn't want to rush physical intimacy and jeopardize that. And so I went on over there, and I met the sister-in-law. I saw how he interacted with his nephew, y'all. It was really cute. And that was a check in my book. I feel like men that are comfortable around children, not in a creepy way, but that are comfortable around children, like, that can be nurturing, like, that's a check mark for me, you know. and it wasn't giving creepy. I think I would have picked up on it if it was giving creepy. It wasn't giving creepy. It was giving, I'm your uncle and this is my dude, like that. And so as the night went on, they lived in an upstairs downstairs situation. So the sister-in-law took the nephew upstairs and we watched the movie, and y'all, we just sat on the couch and we cuddled and we watched the movie. And then at the end of the movie, I was like, all right, go get my jacket. It's getting late. And so he was like, you don't want to stay? I was like, you got roommates. Go get my jacket. And so he went upstairs to his room. He got my jacket, walked me to the car. That's where we had our first kiss. And it was a good kiss. He had the softest lips. Oh my goodness. I was like, okay, give me something to think about on the drive home. And so I got home and I really reflected on how I felt about him. I was like, I'm feeling this dude. Like, I like him. And so, fourth date, we back on my side of town. I forgot what happened, but I know we ended up back at my place, and baby, we did it. Okay? We had the sex. We sure did. And y'all, when I tell you explosive, it was explosive. Like, you know, I'm not a virgin. I had experience with men before, and it wasn't given that he slept around a lot. Like, I think I would have picked up on that. He was focused, and I was focused on him. Yeah, we really enjoyed each other. And so, he didn't leave until Monday morning. I think he came over that Saturday. He might have went back to his place to get some clothes, but he came back over to my house and we just spent the weekend together. And we entered into a pattern where, you know, I worked days, he worked nights. And so he would get off of work and come to my spot in the middle of the night on Friday and would leave till Monday morning. And when he used to kiss me goodbye, he would kiss me like he didn't want to leave. Like, it was just so romantic. And so, you know, we started dating and eventually we became official. I insisted that he asked me to be my boyfriend, and he did. He asked me, you know. And I just noticed that, again, grown man, the way he dressed, the way he walked, the way he talked. He was an introvert, and so he wasn't, you know, he wasn't all rah-rah, you know what I'm saying? Like, for lack of a better term. He was very mild-mannered, very quiet, but around me, he was talkative. And we could talk about anything. And so, of course, there were some things in our relationship that stood out to me that he did. So one of the things that he did was pay my car note. We was talking one day and he was like, you know, I know that you work really hard. I know that you're on a budget. I'd like to help you. And he was like, I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, where I'm from, you know, men help their women financially. I was like, oh. I wasn't going to let him pay my rent because back then I didn't believe in living together before marriage. You know what I'm saying? I was very traditional back then. And so I didn't want him to feel like he had any claims on where I stayed. And so I allowed him to pay a car note for me. We went out to dinner and things like that. We went out on dates. He always paid. I never had to pay for anything. The treatment of my car, not only was he putting gas in my car, but he was also detailing my car occasionally, you know. He was in the cars. I had a new car. He wanted to help me to keep my vehicle up. I was going to let him. When we did have meals that I would prepare in the house, he would buy the groceries. I mean, just a grown man. I was like, oh, I could get used to this. Another thing that he did for me, I think one of the first things that he did for me is he bought me a radio for my car. However, it wasn't the type of radio that I wanted. And so, shortly after he did that, I went and I priced a radio on my own and had it installed. And when I broke it to him, he didn't trip. Now, this was early in the relationship. You know, I think maybe later in the relationship that might have been a turnoff, but he wasn't doing no tripping. When I tell you mild mannered, mild mannered. When I tell you even tempered, even tempered. So chalking up to my attachment style, I feel like the relationship was starting to feel too good. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't seeing any red flags. However, I felt a little uneasy. I felt a little uneasy at the pacing that we were going. We were moving kind of fast. And so I told him, I was like, hey, you know, you're the type of person that I could really see myself with on down the line. And we have a long time to get to know each other. So let's kind of slow things down a little bit. And so we slowed down a little bit, you know, but we were still in a pattern. We were still very much together. So one day, you know, he was at my house. He was watching a soccer game. I was on the computer. And so I don't know how we got on the subject of driver's license. When you're in a relationship, you're in that group and you like the person that you're with, you can converse with them about anything. Like you go here, there, everywhere, and you come back to the middle. That's how it was with us. But we did. And he was very reluctant to show me his driver's license. And I was like, that's very strange. And so I was like, well, I'll show you mine. And so I got up, I showed him mine. He was like, well, I don't want to show you mine because the picture is ugly. I was like, but I've seen you. And so like, there's not a picture that you can show me that will make me think that you're unattractive. And so he was hesitant, but he took the driver's license out of his wallet. But he had his thumb over the picture. And I was like, move your thumb. And he wouldn't. And eventually I talked him into moving his thumb. And when I looked at the picture, it wasn't him. And I was like, who is this? And he just kept diverting from answering the question. He kept saying, oh, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. And that's the type of thing that, no, we don't talk about it no later. I was like, because my driver's license has my name and my picture on it. But your driver's license not only don't have your picture on it, but it's a different name than what I know you by. And he just kept dodging the question. Now, there were two things that I could have done in that situation, y'all. I could have crashed out, you know, or I could have did what I did. I was like, oh, you don't want to talk? Okay. I got up. I turned that computer off. I turned the dining room light off. I turned the living room light off. I turned the TV off. And I went upstairs to my bedroom. And I remember feeling I didn't want him to leave. I wanted us to talk about the truth. If we could talk about everything else under the sun, he could tell me the truth. And so I'm in my bedroom, just sitting there, not knowing what to do next. I hear footsteps walk across the living room, and then I hear him sink down onto the couch. I had leather sofas there, so you could hear, especially when it's quiet, when somebody's sitting down on your couch. And it was quiet for a little while, and then he called up to me. And when he called up to me, you know, I answered, and eventually we talked about it. I still didn't get the answers that I wanted. I don't remember what he said, but I remember what I said. I was like, look, next time you come over here, I need to see some documentation with your name and your birthday and anything else about you. And if you don't bring that, don't bother to come over here no more. And I don't want to have to ask you for any of this. I want you to bring it up. And so he agreed. All right, I think we're gonna end this there. So that's part one of this story time. I don't want it to be too long, but we'll definitely get into part two. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you tell people about my channel. Again, story times is something new, but I thought that I would, I thought I would try something new. All right, y'all. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Go to London, Tokyo, Paris.